Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here. You guys know what time it is. Time to talk about current events in the online fitness community. And a lot of people are bringing up this whole topic with Shawn Rhoden being banned from the Mr. Olympia. So let me go ahead and put on my +5 how to speechcraft and let's talk about this. Now, as most of you guys know, I want to remind people I'm not a bodybuilder, not a bodybuilding fan. People are saying, like, Jason, why do you need to remind us of that? Because the fact that I'm speaking on bodybuilding, I'm going to get a bunch of bodybuilding fans come in and maybe they don't understand that I actually dislike bodybuilding. I'm opposed to it philosophically. And that doesn't mean training to look good is what I'm telling you not to do. I'm talking about bodybuilding. Shawn Rhoden is a bodybuilder. You probably are not. You have never stepped foot on bodybuilding stage. So, over to the point. A lot of people wanted me to discuss the actual allegations in detail. I'm not going to do that. And the reasons I'm not going to do that is that you're dealing with a very, very sensitive issue. There is no side that you can take on that where people aren't going to get angry at you. I haven't seen the physical evidence. I am not on the jury. I'm not in a situation to judge this man's guilt or innocence, okay? And neither are any of you. And I think people's judgment gets too clouded because they're fans of bodybuilding and therefore they will let that influence their opinions. Maybe they're a fan of the guy who he unseated last year. And people always have to remind me of that because I don't know who the hell Shawn Rhoden is. I don't follow bodybuilding. I keep thinking Phil Heath is Mr. Olympia, and people keep reminding me, no, it's Shawn something. And I've had to go read this news story so I can remember his name. So that tells you guys how much I really give a shit about bodybuilding. Doesn't matter to me that he's Mr. Olympia. Therefore, I don't have a clouded judgment because I can't remember the names of the guys. I wouldn't know Shawn Rhoden walking down the street. I wouldn't. Well, not that he's going to be walking down the street anytime soon. But I wouldn't know him. I wouldn't know who the hell he is. So, don't care. People get biased, and a lot of people jump over and say, "Oh, he's being framed with this crime to avoid the Olympia. It's a conspiracy." Then other people are screaming, to execute him already with the mere accusation of a sexual assault, right? And the reality is both of these sides are ludicrous, all right? Let's just be realistic here. And this is a warning to you guys. Everyone's always out there talking about, I want to go bang strange random girls all the time. Yeah, you need to be careful of that in this day and age. We don't live in a world where it's always a good idea for you to be doing that. And stuff like this is a perfect example. Because in this case, this is why this guy's in trouble. What we do know, these are facts, released by the police. She went to the police immediately, okay? She went to the police immediately and his DNA evidence was present, all right? There is evidence, that is evidence beyond a shadow of a doubt that they did something, right? That's beyond a shadow of a doubt. His only defense versus her only ability to speak in front of a jury is going to come down, was it consensual? Okay, that's going to be the entirety of the case because they can prove with what they've already said publicly, what the police have released, and they're not going to release that unless that is a fact. All right, the event happened. They have physical evidence of that. So, and that's the other thing, when someone goes immediately to the police, if they got bruises or they got tearing of certain types and they claim that you did it and there's DNA evidence, there's a 99% chance you're going to lose when it goes to trial. You are in trouble. So I don't know the details of what else they found, but we've said they found the DNA evidence. That's what we have. So as far as any other evidence of consensual or not, well, she's saying it wasn't. So here's how this is going to go down. This needs to be heard by a jury. She needs to present her testimony, her story against a guy in front of a jury. He can defend himself in front of a jury of his peers, and they will look at the evidence and give the guy a fair trial. That's how the system works. And his guilt or innocence will be determined at that point. My opinion, your opinion, everyone else's opinion on it is irrelevant. But the fact of the matter is, a DA is not going to press charges against a fairly high-profile person. He is technically a public figure. Now, it doesn't matter that people don't know what bodybuilding is. He's a public figure with a high income. All right. DAs don't prosecute people like that without pretty solid evidence. So let the trial happen. What's going to happen is going to happen. So we come over to the situation of the Olympia, because that's what a lot of people are asking about. They're like, Jason, he hasn't been found guilty of anything. It's not right for them to do that. Innocent until proven guilty. Guys, that's not how any of this works in the real world. Okay, innocent until proven guilty is before you get put in prison. All right? You understand you can be sued without actual finding of guilt. You know that, right? When it comes to fiscal matters, it is not the same burden of proof. Even in the United States, people need to understand that. Do you understand that if someone sues you or you go to civil court and it's over money, they base it on preponderance of the evidence as to who's winning or losing, because it's a person versus another person. They're not accusing you of a criminal offense. You're not going to go to jail. It's going to be over fiscal things, money. And being banned from the Olympia is more of a money situation. You do understand it's based upon preponderance of the evidence. The judge has to look at it, and whichever side has a 51% chance of being the correct party is who the win is awarded to. Okay? So in other words, if someone shows up and claims you stole $500,000 from me in a shady business deal, or you did this to me and I want to sue you for pain or suffering or whatever, you do understand that the burden of proof is generally which one is 51% likely to be right. You got to pick one or the other in civil court. And it's just whoever's more likely to be right. It's preponderance of the evidence. You got to look at it and say, this one is a slightly more viable story than this one, therefore that's where we win. That is how it works. That's not even a finding of guilt. That's not absolute proof. It's preponderance of the evidence. When you are dealing with private corporations and private organizations, they can hire and fire based upon basic preponderance of the evidence. Okay? If you get accused at a job, at a big corporation, even if you have a six-figure income, if you get accused of wrongdoings that are going to be an ethical or moral violation or a policy violation at that company, and there is reasonable evidence to show that you did it, management ownership can fire you for that usually. And even if you try to take it to court and sue them, if they just present reasonable evidence that the accusation against you was very likely to be true, preponderance of the evidence, you're going to lose. So do you guys see the problem there? So it doesn't work that way. So even though they banned him from it, even if he were to take it to trial and sue the IFBB, right? Sue the people for what they're doing. They can say, well, the accusation itself, and there was reasonable evidence of it. I mean, he got charged with the crime. There's reasonable evidence of it. We just don't want to associate with him anymore as a brand. We banned him from competition for wrongdoing. Just like in various sports, if you're drug tested and you fail a drug test, even if you can present reasonable evidence or you feel that drug test was invalid because it's not absolute proof, you don't get a trial. When you are banned from the Olympics or you're banned from a sports team for failing a doping test, for example, you do realize you don't get a trial. You don't get a finding of guilt or innocence because they're not throwing you in jail. Well, maybe in China they might. They're not throwing you in jail. They're not taking your freedom away, but they can fire you from competing in their organization. They can fire you from a job. And people have to understand that difference when we're dealing with these private organizations like this. Especially in something as subjective as bodybuilding. Bodybuilding doesn't really have truly objective judging criteria that are followed like a sport does. It's a performing art. It's a form of beauty pageant. It's completely subjective, completely political. So when it comes to situations like this, that's how it's going to go down. And let me put it to you another way. Even if they allowed the guy to compete and let him spend all of his money competing, let's assume he isn't in prison, and he goes to compete, the mere accusation like that, because you're dealing with a subjective judging criteria, you do understand the judges could just all decide that they don't like his reputation and that's enough to knock him out. Just like you go to the Miss America or Miss Universe or any of these beauty pageants, which are just as subjective as bodybuilding. Politics can determine your placing irrespective of how pretty you are. So he could show up technically from a bodybuilding perspective with the best package, but based on politics, they could place him dead last. And that's within their purview because his public image is enough to do that. It's a subjective beauty pageant. That's what it is. And your image in politics and everything else absolutely affect it. And I don't know why people don't seem to grasp that who are fans of it. It's designed to be that way. It has no objective judging criteria. It really doesn't. They can claim it does, but it doesn't. They're not enforced. So at the end of the day, when you're dealing with something like that, even if they chose not to kick him out, and it's well within their right to do so, you don't have to find someone guilty of something to kick them out of a private competing organization. Public reputation alone is enough for that. If it's something realistic like that. It just is what it is, guys. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.